Welcome to MrClaff.com's review of Greece and Rome, brought to you by Noble Review, concise review books. Greece and Rome are important to know because they lay the foundation for Western civilization, which is the cultural heritage of much of Europe and the United States. Let's start with Greece. Greece is surrounded by the Mediterranean and Aegean seas. Because it was mountainous, each Greek city-state, or polis, was isolated and developed a somewhat unique culture. Let's talk about the polis of Sparta. Sparta was a military society where the boys were drilled for military service at a young age. It was ruled by an oligarchy, or a select few wealthy citizens. The polis of Athens is of greater importance. Around 450 BC, it was led by Pericles. He supported a direct democracy, which meant that all of the male citizens would govern. Women and slaves were left out. Education was important in Athens. Though different, Athens and Sparta teamed up to defeat invaders in the Persian Wars. This ushered in a golden age of culture for Athens. But that would end with the Peloponnesian War and the Athenian surrender to Sparta. Greek culture still influences us today. Homer wrote the epic poems of the Iliad and the Odyssey, which are two of the oldest examples of Western literature. Years later, Greek writers such as Sophocles wrote Oedipus the King and Antiquity. The Parthenon is a great example of classical architecture because of its symmetry and use of columns. Three major types of columns to know are Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. In math, Pythagoras and Euclid made great advances. Euclid's elements laid the foundation for geometry. Hippocrates made great strides in medicine. The Olympics were games to honor Zeus, and similar competition is still held today. There are three philosophers to know about. No spa. Socrates asked questions but was found guilty of corrupting the youth of Athens, and was sentenced to death. Plato wrote the Republic, where he outlined an efficient government controlled by the most intelligent leaders, or philosopher kings. Aristotle used logic to test sciences such as biology, psychology, and metaphysics. His student was Alexander the Great. Alexander's father, Philip II of Macedonia, controlled much of the Greek peninsula. After his death, Alexander took over and expanded. His conquests blended Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian cultures into one big bowl of cultural diffusion known as Hellenistic culture. Years later, the Romans adopted Greek culture. They had a republic, meaning that certain leaders were elected by the citizens. In the Roman Republic, there were patricians, or the aristocracy of rich property owners. Lower, there were the plebeians, or commoners such as merchants and farmers. They eventually became elected officials, called tribunes. The Senate was controlled by the aristocracy who served for life. Dictators were allowed to be appointed in a time of crisis. The 12 tables of law were written laws that expressed the rights of the citizens. Rome expanded into a huge empire. Before Julius Caesar, there were the Punic Wars, where Roman legions fought Carthage. In the Second Punic War, Carthaginian leader Hannibal took his troops, horses, and elephants through the French Alps and attacked Rome from the north. He was unsuccessful and was defeated by the Roman general Scipio. Senator Cato said Carthage must be destroyed, and it was. It was set on fire in the Third War. Rome could now control the Mediterranean. Julius Caesar became dictator and gave citizenship to some of the conquered. He also preached land reform for the poor. Though he was a dictator for life, he was assassinated on March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March. After his assassination, Octavian and General Mark Antony ruled Rome. Octavian emerged as the true leader and took on the title of Augustus. Next, 200 years of peace and cultural advances blossomed during a time period known as Pax Romana. The Romans built upon Greek cultural achievements. They had architectural wonders such as the Roman Colosseum and used domes as well as arches to create vaulted ceilings. They used concrete aqueducts to carry water throughout Rome. They also had advances in theater and literature, as Virgil's Aeneid was modeled after Greek epics. Christianity began to spread throughout the Roman Empire. In 313 AD, persecution of Christians ended when Emperor Constantine had a battle victory which he attributed to Christianity. But all good things must come to an end. When Rome split and the capital was moved to Constantinople, the empire in the west began to decline. Famine, political unrest, and invasions of tribes such as the Huns depleted the empire. It fell quietly in 476 AD. The Eastern Empire survived as the Byzantine Empire, and Greco-Roman culture was preserved. For more review, you can find free flashcards and review sheets at MrClaff.com. We also invite you to check out the Noble Review in both paperback and e-book formats. Best of luck on your tests.